Hello everyone, I'm William, someone who's just come out of depression. I really want to share this story with everyone. Please like and subscribe to the channel. As a child, I used to have a very happy family. However, things had changed since my dad left. 3 years later, he returned unexpectedly, and my parents divorced. It all happened so fast that an 8-year-old was too young to understand adult problems. I just knew that my mother had won custody of me.
Dad, don't go!
I remembered him walking straight and not even looking back. My mother hugged me tightly and showed a cold expression on her face.
Stop crying. You only have me as your relative now.
But 2 years later, my mother remarried a man named Benton. Initially, he was pretty good to me. He usually came to class to pick me up from school when my mom was working overtime, take me out, and buy a lot of things I liked. Until he and my mother officially married and gave birth to Alice and Baron. My life was officially turned upside down. I had to help my mother do housework, take care of the baby, and follow the orders of my stepfather. However, that was not enough to satisfy Mr. Benton. In times of frustration, he would find me and vent his anger by calling me a useless stepson clinging to his money. At such times, I would suffer silently for my mother. When I thought back on it, my stepdad always chose to bully me when my mother wasn't home. Therefore, in her mind, Mr. Benton had always been as kind to me as when he dated her. It was heartbreaking to say that I used to like my stepfather, Benton. Currently, he always looked at me with cold eyes. Facing Mr. Benton, I didn't even dare look up. It was also because of the way Uncle Benton treated me that my siblings, Alice and Baron, increasingly did not consider their brother anything. One day, my naughty brother Baron broke his grandmother's old glasses, my stepfather's mom, and he saw it with his own eyes. He, on the other hand, blamed me for breaking it to kick me out of the house, thus alleviating his eyesore. I knew that he did it on purpose. If I argued back, he would make a fuss to make things worse. I endured patiently, wandering around, waiting for my mother's return. That night, I shared it with my mother, hoping she would comfort me. But all of a sudden, she thought I was a liar.
It's no big deal to break the glasses. Why did you want me to blame your brother?
I really didn't do that. Why can you trust others but not me?
Benton gave you the money to go to school. You're not grateful. And you're even being mean. Hurry up to your room and study now. Stop picking a quarrel.
It was one of many times that she didn't believe in my own words. In addition, she treated me and my siblings very unfairly. Most recently, she didn't even go to parent conference for me, even though she agreed. I was looking forward to that day because I wanted her to see my excellent academic achievements. Why did you promise to come to the meeting for me but then fail to show up?
Alice is just in the first grade, and I need to take care of her more. Your studies? Aren't the transcripts all very good? What is there to worry about?
But you promised me first. Alice is important, but I'm not?
Why compared to your sister? She'd be sad to hear this. Don't ever talk about it again.
I wanted to continue, but my mother interrupted me and asked me to pick up my brother from his grandmother's house. I wondered if she had ever thought about how I felt. From the moment she had kids, her life revolved almost exclusively around them. Except when I had exam results, or else she would treat me extremely superficially. I realized why she was so concerned with the accomplishments. She once said that knowledge was the only way to brighten my future. However, even when I tried to get good results, I still didn't get applause from her. It seemed obvious that I had to study well. Gradually, I became an invisible person in this house. I shut down, not wanting to confide in Mom about anything. I became quieter and less talkative. My brother Baron was only 4 years old at the time, but the way my mother and stepfather treated me caused him to look down on his brother.
Why are you so late? I'll tell Dad.
I was so used to his insolence that I wasn't angry. Despite Baron's grunt, I still gripped his hands to ensure safety. Seeing that there were crowds of people gathered across the street, he insisted on watching. I looked over and saw a bunch of kids spinning around the clown, watching the show. But Mom called us home, so I turned him down. He angrily bit my hands and sped across the street. Baron rushed out abruptly, causing a car to brake urgently. Although this did not affect his life, Baron's legs were broken. Mom and stepdad heard the news and immediately ran to the hospital. Baron, how's he going? What did you do to get him into an accident? He ran across the street. I couldn't keep up. An adult like you couldn't hold a child? Are you tricking me?
You did that on purpose, didn't you?
You have to believe me. He bit me and ran away. I tried to explain, and as long as she believed me, that was enough. However, she didn't believe me, insisting that I changed my temper and become uncomfortable and unruly. If there's something wrong with my son, I'll not leave you alone. Even when my stepfather Benton first stood in front of my mother, threatening me, she thought I deserved punishment for injuring my brother. In the middle of a crowded hospital, I was cursed for something I didn't do. She was even more outrageous when she said I was as selfish as my father Thomas, and then left. This incident caused me to lose all hope for my mother. I went home, packed up, and went looking for Father Thomas at the address in the letter he had sent 3 years ago. Luckily, he was still there. But for one thing, my father didn't let me stay. You can't be here, your mother will be very angry. Why not? It's been a long time, but in short, you can't stay here. No matter what it was, I pushed the door inside because, other than this place, I had nowhere else to go. It was my first meeting with him since my parents' divorce, so we were both feeling a little awkward. To calm the atmosphere, he offered to cook for me. As we did so, we chatted. Do you have anything to do with me when you find me? I want to go out to relieve stress before going back to school. Does your mom know? No. I asked her to travel with my friends. I didn't want my dad to know too much about my life, so I chose to give a cursory answer. Partly, I was afraid that if he knew that I was running away from home, he'd take me back to that miserable place. Seeing the atmosphere subside, I hurriedly changed the subject. What are you doing? Adventurer. I explore new lands. Exploring? I've never heard of this before. Dad Thomas began to talk about the past. He loved to explore until my father married Mom, May, and gave birth to me, so that passion had to be shelved. However, over the years, he wanted to continue his adventure, but my mother couldn't help but ask for a divorce. I finally understood why my mother said my dad was selfish. After the meal, I was led to the garrets by him. Because the other rooms contained a lot of his belongings, it took time to clean them up. I didn't feel uncomfortable with it. Compared to the room in my stepfather's house, this one was lower, dustier, and had a musty smell due to the lack of users for a long time, but I liked it much more. There was no mother's call, no screaming voice of my stepdad, no fussy noise from my 2 younger, stubborn siblings, and I comfortably slept soundly. I peacefully stayed with my dad for 3 days. Then, the call from my mother scared me a little. I came here on my own. If she'd known this, she would have been extremely angry. The calls were missed a few times, but Mom did not give up, so I shakily picked up the phone.
Where are you going? Isn't that enough? Go home quickly.
My dad didn't know I was on my mom's phone, so he called out, "William, come down for breakfast." My mother paused, her voice full of doubt.
Where are you?
I didn't dare say that I was with Dad. I hung up the phone and turned it off. Thinking back, I don't know where I got the courage to do that. After that, I ate breakfast calmly, as if nothing had happened. Sometimes I found it strange. It was Dad who broke up the family and left me to suffer for years, but I didn't hate him. I ate well and repaired an old car with my dad. What are you gonna do after fixing it? I'm about to go again. Hearing that, my ears buzzed. I never thought my happiness would be so short-lived. I wanted to open my heart, to confide in all the memories I had suffered in my stepfather's house. I dreamed of the prospect of my father being heartbroken and taking me home. My voice choked. So, how about me? You should go back to your mom. Even if I say I'm unhappy living there, will you still go? How could that be? Your mother loves you so much. That's your home. I asked myself, home? Where's my home? I threw the tool angrily and went upstairs. I grabbed my phone to surf Facebook to forget my frustration, but I did not expect to be saddened by seeing happy photos of other families. I buried my head in the blanket, crying so hard that I couldn't breathe. All that day, I lay idly, ignoring my father's attention. He decided to abandon me again, so caring made me feel redundant. Late at night, because I was too hungry to sleep, I surfed the web again. I went back to school after a week off, but I was extremely depressed about studying. I completely wrapped up my phone again, even though it was my favorite subject. In a match, I accidentally befriended a guy. We played and talked about the game a lot, so we got closer and closer. One day, that guy suddenly asked me a strange question. I see you play games a lot. Are you okay? No problem. I'm just free, so I want to kill time. That's good. If you're not okay, confide in me. At that time, I was really fed up with putting my trust in others. Mom and Dad, no one believed what I said. Mom believed in my stepdad because he used to be good to me. Dad believed in Mom because he had seen her love for me so much. But people would always change. However, they still only believed in what they'd seen and felt. Because of them, I was afraid to open up and then embrace disappointment. However, that online friend did not give up. It was weird to be separated by a screen, but he still knew I was lying. Every day he asked me how my day was. He told me funny stories that made me laugh. Gradually, I opened up without knowing. His patience and sincerity made me let go of my defense. I told him my story. You may be annoyed when I say this, but I guess you're depressed. No way, I'm just so tired. Trust me, not every person with depression has a sad appearance. Smiling depression is really scary. This is because hardly anyone, even the patient himself, does not realize it, which makes it worse. His conversation made me look at myself. I stopped eating, slept late, and my body became thin. I skipped school, played games day and night, usually swore and cried easily. However, when I woke up and faced everyone, I always showed that I was very good. So I followed the other guy's words and I went to the mental hospital. During a month of treatment, I remained with my father. He felt uneasy with me, so he put his schedule on hold so he could stay with me for a little while. Perhaps because of this, my illness improved quickly. Suddenly, one day after school, I came home, but I saw my mother come to find me. More than a month passed without her seeing me. Instead of caring for me, she slammed my academic results paper on the table.
Explain, what is this?
Besides studying, don't you care about anything anymore?
You have a new, happy family, and you have the best school, but you always try to resist and tell bad stories about your stepfather and siblings. You left to come here. I tried to endure it, but you neglected to study. What do you want after all?
I've never been happy. My stepdad doesn't love me, my siblings don't love me, and you've never believed me. I'd rather be here with Dad, study at a dilapidated old school, than go back there to be insulted and tormented by the stepfather. She raised her hand to signal me to stop, pointing at Father Thomas and scolding me.
Did you teach him to say that? William is always obedient. What a base!
After saying that, she dragged me to the car to take me back to my stepfather's house. It turned out that she still didn't know that she'd been unfair to me and assumed that my dad had taught me to do so. I was so frustrated, I no longer wanted to resist and quietly returned to that cold house. From the moment I came back, my mother treated me more and more severely. She forced me to study at all times during my free time to get back to where I was. Not stopping there, she even let me watch over my siblings more to bond emotionally because she thought I hated them. Those bad kids knew I didn't dare to do anything, so they became more naughty. Alice even made up a story with my stepfather that I had beaten her to bruises, so he angrily locked me in a storage, forcing me to stay in it despite the freezing weather. My mother was on the night shift. She didn't know it. I wanted to call her for help, but the phone was confiscated by Mr. Benton. Suddenly, in the middle of the night, I heard a car entering the gate. Through the window, I knew that my mother was coming back, so I shouted for her help. Because of this, Mom and Stepdad had a big argument. Mr. Benton was still fabricated, which made me evil. However, this time, Mom spoke up to protect me. After that night, I had a bad fever. It was only a week home, but I felt like I'd been in hell for the whole year. Looking at the medicine and porridge that my mom put next to my bed, I didn't want to eat anymore. Suddenly, I heard an argument downstairs. I dragged my heavy body downward. That was my father, and I gladly walked toward him. Dad, please take me with you. My mother violently jerked me back.
Where to go? He does not deserve to be addressed as father.
My father angrily threw my medical journal and diary in my mother's face and shouted, "Read it! See if you're worthy of being a mother!" It turned out that while my father was packing up to bring back to me before going on an adventure, he saw my medical journal and diary. Thinking back to our short time together, I was happier. He decided to go against my mother's request, insisting on getting justice for me. Without waiting for my mother to agree, my father took me home. He promised to stay with me until I went to college before continuing his journey, which made me extremely happy. The pressure I'd been under before quickly dissipated. The day after I returned to my father, my mother came again. I saw her eyes turn red. When I asked her, I realized that as my father took me away, she reread my diary. Every word of it made her unbelievable. I almost fell backward when she told me that she had installed cameras in my room to monitor me. Thanks to that, not seeing me in her room in the middle of the night, she rushed home. When she checked the video, she discovered that Alice and Baron fought each other, and the bruises were also born there. Seeing me bullied with her own eyes, my mother believed that I had been wronged. Remembering the way she treated me earlier, my mother was deeply disturbed. She hugged me, sobbing.
I didn't believe you. I'm sorry.
I hadn't felt warm from my mother in a long time. I happily embraced her and accepted her apology. Me, Mom, and Dad sat down for a talk. Following this incident, my mother agreed to let me live with my father and to pay me regular visits. Being loved, listened to, and understood led me to gradually regain faith in life. When my illness was cured, I reached out to a friend I knew online. The two of us talked for a long time and decided to start a blog to share positive stories and help those who were sad get motivated.